G'day, I'm Bruce, and in this video I'm going to try and get this old grader going, which has been sitting for many years. I first spotted this machine about a year ago when I was out here doing another video, and quite a few people said, oh, go back out and start the grader. So I'm here today to see if I can get the old 1955 grader going. There's a shot of the ID plate. I'm pretty sure it says 1955 on there, but it's very hard to read. There's the engine. It looks to me like it's been retrofitted with some sort of a Perkins. It's probably either a 6354 or a 6306. I think originally this grader would have been probably fitted with a petrol engine, and you can see here, you can see how close the fan is to the radiator. But this engine would be longer than what was in there originally, I'd say. That fan is very close to the radiator. Might have grafted some form of Land Cruiser or some Land Cruiser type starter motor on there, which is a pretty smart move, the way they've got like an adapter plate made up. I'm pretty sure this grader would have been modified and everything by a man called Joe. He used to do people's driveways. He was a very fussy man and very good at working on machinery, and I think he's passed on probably about 10 years ago. There's the blade assembly underneath there, of course, and this one looks like it's all operated by hydraulics. Looks like the rams are a bit leaky, but that might be a good thing. That may have stopped them from rusting. These farmers have never seen this grader go, so they don't really know anything about it. Righto, we'll check the oil if I can get the dipstick out. See if I can see the full mark. Oh yeah, there's the full mark just there, so it's got plenty of oil in it. Next up will be the radiator water. I can't see any water in there, but there we are, full. Wait till it goes down a little bit. Yep, no, it's going to take more. It's going to take more. Might be right this time. The front tyres on it look to be in really good condition. The back tyres look pretty old, but I guess they're still holding air. This one here could do with a bit more air putting in it. Here's a shot looking around at the operator console. The next thing will be to look at the fuel system. I'll just start off here by cleaning up the sight glass on the lift pump, on the fuel lift pump. It looks pretty dark. I'd say it's still full of fuel, which is a good sign. It's always a good idea when the fuel tank's above the height of the engine, or above the height of the fuel pump anyway. That's always a good sign that it's always going to have fuel there. Always going to have a certain amount of pressure rather than vacuum. If they have the fuel tank down here, there's a good chance everything over a period of time all the fuel's drained away and the whole system will be full of air, but that looks good. I'm just going to dip the fuel tank. Straighten that up a little bit. Diesel up to about here. So it's got a fair bit of diesel in it. Let's have a bit of a smell. It smells old. Yeah, it smells pretty old, but it doesn't look too bad to look at. That's a good sign. If it's gone black or anything, well, you know it's really bad, but The diesel still looks fairly clear, which is a good thing. Even though it smells very old, it still doesn't look too bad. I'm just going to put some fuel doctor in there. I probably should put some fresh diesel in too, but I'll just wait and see if it is going to turn over, because if the motor's seized or whatever, well, I'm flogging a dead horse if that's happening. Give that a bit of a shake up first. Should be about right. If it runs, that'll help clean the injectors, and if it has any algae in the tank, that should kill the algae in the tank too, hopefully. This lid here is a bit dirty inside, so I'll just give that a bit of a wipe out so that cobwebs and dirt doesn't go into the tank. I just thought I'd check the air cleaner while I'm at it. The roof looks in pretty good nick above here, but there are places where there are leaks. I'll give this here a bit of a spray with WD-40. It's the sort of place if it was right in the middle of wet season, rain would be able to blow in between the top and the bottom. You can see that there is very rusty. I'll have to get something or other else to get on there. I'll see if I can capture that nut. It's only sitting in a bit of rusty tin. Now I might stand some chance. No. No. Could just check the pre-clean, but it looks just as bad. Is it rusted off? No. Can't believe that. Come on, done easy. I reckon the air cleaner inside could be pretty dirty. Go and give this a bit of a bump. As you can see in there, there's still a fair bit of dust in there. So I reckon the main air cleaner is probably, if this is dirty, the main air cleaner would be dirty as well. Yep, it's going to come loose. Really very rusty. I might just tighten it back up a bit and I'll wash the rust out of the thread. The trick with these things is try not to go too far at one time. Just loosen them off bit by bit. If you just try and undo them in one go, it'll just snap. Well, with the cameraman's help, we got that free, but I didn't think we were going to the way things were going. Pretty rusty. Same thing, there's a bit of dust in there. Pull that off. More dirt in there. We need now is a bit of compressed air to blow that out. I'm going to try and get this old compressor going that's on this property. Don't really know how hard it's going to be to crank up. I guess the key's on. Where are we? Got to be a choke here somewhere. What's this down here? I'll just check that it has got oil in it. Very dirty. There's a full mark there, so it's not far off the full mark on that side. Now we really need to know what's going on here. We've got the old air compressor going, but we don't seem to have a real lot of pressure, so we'll give it a go. Well, that's certainly a lot better than what it was. I'll just show you how these air cleaners work. See how these fins on here are on an angle, a bit like a boat propeller, but they're stationary. So what happens, the air gets sucked in here, and And as the air goes up through here, the air is spinning like that. And what happens then, the dust is heavier than the air. So the dust gets flung to the outside. So you can see here, it comes up here like a cyclone. When it hits the lid, like that, the dust is always at the outer edge. So the dust will go back down and settle in there. That's the pre-cleaner, or the first air cleaner, we'll say, first stage. That's how that works. Then the air comes down through the throat. As it enters the throat, it has another spiral, which is stationary. So then the air changes direction as it's going down that way, and it goes this way. Then as it hits here, as it hits those fins are stationary, it starts up another spiral motion, which spins. The dust is heavier than air again, so the dust gets flung to the outside of the air cleaner cylinder, we'll say. And then what happens, this thing here has got to be put on a certain way. It has top on here, so the dust ends up, it's spinning around, and the dust ends up going through the top here, and the dust gets caught in this part here, the raw dirt. So it's got a fair bit before that can fill up with dirt, and that saves the majority of the dust getting on the actual air cleaner element itself. So it's a pretty good system. It's been out for a lot of years, and most things are probably still like that today. If you really want to stop the dust getting into your pet engine, what you do is you get a bit of grease and you put it around here like this. Doesn't have to be a massive amount. And then if any dust, just say the canister is a bit warped or a bit uneven, once you put that grease around there, any dust tries to get through, then it'll just hit that grease and stop. So that's how that system works. This goes in like that. This setup here, these have a real bad habit of rusting up from sitting for a long time, so we'll grease that up fairly well. So remember my motto, always think of the next person. Who knows, this thing could sit here for another 20 years or longer. Bit of grease in there too wouldn't hurt. Who knows, Joe might be up above looking down, watching his grader, thinking, you beauty, someone's going to come along there and finally do something with my grader. These are really a common thing for rusting up, really common. I don't know how many of these I've come across in my time that have just been just a solid piece of rust. You can't put too much grease on one of these, I'm convinced. This is probably not quite so important, but I'll put a little bit on there. Yeah, the wing nut goes on there next. It's always best to check that these are actually seated in central when you look in there to see that it is. You can't be too far out on this one because it's got that plastic around there with the blades on it to make the air spin. This here, as you can see here, top. Hard to get that dust out. It says do not use oil on that part. That fits on there snug. Most times you've got to undo these pretty well right undone, otherwise you won't get the end off the can. Right, another job done. Seat's pretty dirty. Battery compartment will be under the seat, which is pretty standard for a lot of earth moving gear. If you look here, standard amount of cobwebs on the things that I usually work on. A little mould on the front there. put our boards under here. The beeper there. Here's the battery terminals here. I'll give those a bit of a clean. So I'm not sure whether it's a 12 volt system or a 24 because it has got a place here for 2 batteries. Battery terminals next. Might work a bit better. I really like to see the terminals nice and shiny. A little bit better, but not much. It's a bit better. This one looks a bit nicer. Yeah, that looks pretty good, that one. Nuts look pretty undersized. That one's still free. Put a bit of WD on the bolts. I'm never that keen on that sort of connection. That one looks like about a 12. The whole story. I had to laugh. Someone made a comment on my channel about how whenever they go to work on anything like this, they find the same problem. The nuts on the battery terminals are always a different size. Gee, hornet's nest. Right, I guess the battery's got to go over on that side. I'll have to go out the way while the battery gets sort of slotted in like that. There it is. I'm going to put the positive on first, aren't I? Lead's actually slightly too long. Maybe I can slide that further forward just a whisker. Does that fit? Just. That's why if you do this one last, it doesn't matter if you, so you can hit the body like that. Nothing. That's at earth, that's at earth. No sparks. Right, that should do it. Here's some gauges. I guess that's probably oil pressure. Temperature. What do we got there? Voltmeter, is it? Yep, voltmeter. It's got a manual transmission. I can just imagine Joe writing these numbers on here in case he was employing anybody, so they knew where all the gears were. So at first, second, third, fourth, neutral. I'm guessing that's got to be reverse, even though I can't see anything marked on it. I'd imagine this pedal here will be the clutch. It feels like it's still working. I would imagine that's probably the brakes. Feel like they're still working too. I'm just going to put the seat back in now. Look at that, nicely done. That's the way it came out. Seats are in very good condition. But Joe was a very fussy man, and I reckon he probably had this grader for quite a few years, and then it went to this property, and I've got no idea how much work it would have done out here. That steering wheel is just dirt and mould. Look at it. Just look at that from mould. I suppose there is water on the ground behind us, but we have had a shower this morning. Look at that, a nice shiny black steering wheel underneath all that mould. Even got the centre cap and the steering wheel still. How many times would you have looked at a tractor or some sort of old machine and that bit's always missing, but that bit's on this one. I reckon this would be the stopper for the engine. My can must be getting down a bit. I'll just go around the other end. Does that key still work? Look at that. The key was on. It's always important with these old things that haven't been started for years. You've always got to make sure that you're going to be able to stop them. Who knows? The clutch might blow a line or anything. I don't know. It's got a hydraulic clutch on it, but then all of a sudden you've got some beast tearing off and you can't stop it. Well, that wouldn't be too good. I reckon this has probably got to be the... Everything here looks pretty dry. That'll be the throttle. Just having a look around. I guess this is probably power steering that Joe would have rigged up. Anything he did, gee, he did a good job. I don't know what that would have been originally, but anything he did was really well done. I can see that end's free if I lift that cable up. That's to stop the engine. Might be able to get a bit more spray there. It's pretty hard to make spray go uphill. WD doesn't want to go uphill. I'll put a little bit of spray around where these seals are, in case there's rust on the shaft. So we've checked the fuel, added some water, checked the engine oil, blown out the air cleaner, fitted the battery. The next thing I'll have to do inside is try the stopper out to make sure that it is free enough that I can stop it from inside. So the next thing up will be to check the little hydraulic tank here, which I suspect that's the setup for the power steering. Over here, this will be the main hydraulic tank for the main hydraulic pump. I'm guessing that's probably the minimum amount of oil. That's probably the maximum amount of oil there. So it's bound to need a lot of oil in there, I'd say. But the rams are leaking. But the one thing is, because the rams have been leaking, they shouldn't be too rusty, but we don't know till we clean them off a bit. They really need a bit of a wipe off. They have got a few ding marks on them, but I can't see any rust. Like little dents on the side of the ram there where, who knows, whether rocks have flown up and hit it or... Got this one here, which is the power steering ram. We can get rid of a bit of that rubbish off of there. Might stop it from going inside the ram, maybe. If it had good seals, it wouldn't go inside, of course, but obviously the seals aren't all that good here. So we'll go around and do the other ram. Look like they've been leaking for a long time. Yep. That looks like it should be good enough to stop it from inside the cab. There's another lever over here on the side, and I reckon that could be the throttle. Yep, that's it, all right. You can see the throttle arm moving on the injector pump. That's the throttle, all right. It's also good to know where the throttle is if you start something up and the motor starts revving or whatever. It's good to always find where the throttle is to be able to shut it down. And if you're in the thing when it took off, well, this doesn't have any steps on the side or anything. You just have to jump for it, I guess, and hope the wheels didn't get you. Certainly a big fitting for a small can. Wasn't very tight, but that's a good idea. That's the breather facing downhill. Right. I'll just go and grab a screwdriver. Just dip the oil. It should reach. There we are. Not much. That'll need topping up. Pumping oil. Working on a grader. Many years ago, I was in Brisbane with Shane, looking at graders. Shane didn't like talking to the salesman. That was my job. We had a big pile of dirt. They must have had about 1,000 tonne of dirt beside their establishment. So anyone that wanted could come in and jump on a machine, try it out in the dirt, see how well it worked. Tony James was a salesman. He's a terrific man to talk to, and both Shane and I probably learned a fair bit off him by asking questions. That's full. So anyway, there was a Drumco grader there. And Shane said, right, I'll drive the grader and take it for a test. You go and talk to Tony. I said, righto then. So Tony was a friendly bloke, and he had been an earth mover himself. And they probably said to him, well, Tony, you know a fair bit about earth moving gear. Would you like to work here? Would you like a job here? And I reckon he would have said, yep, I'll escape from the machinery and I'll just have a nice clean shirt on, and I know enough about the gear to be able to sell it. So Shane was out there burning around this grader, and I'm talking to Tony. And after a while I thought I'll go out and bail Shane up and just see how things are going, what he thinks of this grader. So anyway, he's got the grader running away there. And he says, jump in. So he gets up and clambers into this grader. We go burning off down the paddock beside this pile of dirt. And Shane had been shaving an edge away on this pile of dirt. And anyway, we're going along fairly quickly. I think might have had a 3-speed transmission. I don't know, it was that long ago now. So anyway, I said to Shane, you're going to have to watch out or we're going to run through the fence. We're going pretty fast. And he said, oh, the brakes don't work on this thing. And I said, what? The brakes don't work? He said, yeah, it'll be right. Watch this. So he just shoved it back into reverse and opened the throttle up, and boom, we soon came to a head stop. We nearly had our noses on the windscreen. So that was a scare. That was a pretty big scare for me on the grader, because I thought, that's it. We're going to crash in this thing. So that was a grader story. I won't ever forget that one. Okay, we're going to undo the top one. So all those sort of machines were small to Shane because he'd worked for a company that had a 150 ton crane, and that's what he used to drive around in Brisbane. He used to say the crane had a 350 Cummins in the bottom deck to drive it round from one place to another, and it had another 350 Cummins up on the top deck to work all the rigging and to lift the boom up and down and all the other stuff. So after driving something like that, everything else would have seemed small to Shane. I'd have a right to go again. Shane did end up buying a grader. He bought a Caterpillar, I think it was called a 12E 17K. Everything on it was manual. It had the levers up on the dash to raise and lower everything. I think it might have had one small hydraulic ram on it. Another time Shane was doing a job at Hervey Bay. He had to dig the sand up at low tide. Had to drive out through this bit of a gutter thing which was pretty deep. Had his 33 ton excavator there. Had two 40 ton Moxies. A 30 ton Moxie, that's 6-wheel drive off-road trucks. Had the Komatsu dozer, D85-18A, pushing the sand out the other end. And it had to be at least half tied down. And he had to drive out beside the jetty at Hervey Bay. Have the excavator and everything out there, load these trucks. The trucks would be coming around pretty regularly. And anyway, I went down to see how he's getting on. Anyway, Shane happened to be at the beach at the time, and he said, "Jump in the cat grader. I'll drive out and show you what we're doing." I said, "Oh, how are we going to get out there? It looks like there's a lot of water out there." He said, "It'll be right, just jump in." We're going along, the water's getting deeper and deeper. And I said, "How much deeper is the water going to get?" "Oh," he said, "it'll get a bit deeper yet before it gets shallower." And I said, "Oh, look at that, the wheels are going underwater." He said, "Yeah, it'll be right, but." So we're driving along, and here's the water right over the top of the wheels. I'm thinking, boy, we're going to be in a submarine soon. We're in the ocean at Hervey Bay, we're not in a lake. So, yeah, so anyway, it did start to get shallower. And he said, "Well, that's where we're digging. We've got to dig here, we can only work here for so long, then we've got to get out of it." And obviously the trucks had to come back driving through this water. And he said, "We're spending a fortune in starter motors." He said the starter motors on these things are getting a bath with salt water. And he said 24 volts. And he said a lot of stuff is shorting out with the 24 volts. So I must admit, he tried very hard, Shane, that's for sure. And after he used to finish the job, the council had him set up there with a big water tank. He had his own firefighting pump. And he had to hose everything down. He had to go around and just hose every bit of machinery down to wash all the salt water off it, which was a pretty big job in itself. I'd say it must have been nearly empty. Well, my drum's nearly empty anyway. I'll turn that drum around a bit so we might be able to get a bit more out of it. It sounds like it's very close. Maybe I can just hold that up out of there a bit, if I don't get showered with it. I'd say we're probably going to need every bit we can get. Those rams will probably be empty, so we may even need more oil on this. This is only a small machine, but it's nothing to walk up to one of these and put a couple of 20-litre containers into them. But we don't want to ruin their hydraulic pumps or anything from lack of oil. Anything that's been sitting for a long time, it's probably going to need as much oil as it can possibly get. Right, I'll set this out the way now. As usual on these jobs, I tip this block of wood over and there's a scorpion sitting underneath it. Look at him there. See his tail up? Look at him. Wouldn't like to be lying down on the ground and have him come along and bite me. Looks like something come out of his tail there then. Look at him. He's a nasty little bugger. Look at him. They reckon they'll sting you with the tail, if that's supposed to be right. See his stinger coming up, trying to get the screwdriver. See the stinger there, trying to have a go at me. Well, we're getting ready for a start. So I'm in neutral here now. So I'll turn the key on and just see what's going to happen. Spare key there. Here we go. I'll give it a bit of throttle, which I think is that one there. Yep, she's away. Yep. Well, it starts and the engine runs, so the next up we'll put some air in these tyres and see if it will move. Well, the tyres are pumped up now, so all we've got to do now, we've shifted the door out the way. I'm just going to give the windscreen a clean so I can see where I'm going and see if the thing will move. ride on the old grader. It's a pity I couldn't have had the wheels standing up straight, but they are very hard to turn. Whenever you come up to a corner anywhere, you've got to go shuffle backwards and forwards a few times to make it around a corner, especially with the wheels like that. But yeah, it still goes and drives. It probably did it a bit of good, probably circulated the oil in the transmission and the diffs in the engine and the hydraulic system. So yeah, it was an interesting sort of drive, and I hope you all had fun watching. And if there's anybody out there that's had anything to do with these graders, you might be able to tell us what sort of engine they had in them originally, because I thought it may have had a 4-cylinder petrol engine in it, but I don't know for sure. I think I did hear in the past somewhere that they may have even had a Continental motor in them, but I don't know whether that's right or not. But obviously this one's been converted over to a Perkins. It's had that power steering pump put on the side. So it's been sort of modernised. The brakes still work on it too, which is amazing. So I had a bit of fun driving it. I hope you had a bit of fun watching all the movements the thing could do and running and whatever else. So I'll probably say that's probably about it for this video. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.